Hey everyone, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I'm Spencer,
And I'm Katie.
and today or in this video of today's series over wage slavery, we're going to be talking about what it is. What is wage slavery? So, how do we define wage slavery? Well, it can be defined as a person's dependence on wages or a slavery for their livelihood, especially when wages are low, treatment conditions are poor, and there are few chances of upward mobility. Other important factors to consider include a lack of worker self management, lack of fulfilling job choices, and lack of leisure in an economy. So, with wage slavery, not only do you work with low pay and potentially horrendous conditions, but also don't have enjoyment outside of work, partly due to the low wage.
So, you may be thinking that they aren't slaves if they have the freedom to choose the jobs they want to work. Well, it's not easy or accessible for people to choose what job they work or where they work. It can be difficult for many people to quit their current job or to look for a new job due to the threat of poverty, starvation, loss of health care, and it can also be hard to find a job if you have a past history with a criminal record. But life is full of a lot of hardships that people face. These hardships shouldn't be a barrier to work. Not to mention potential different educational requirements or previous experience that other higher paying jobs may require. And then there's also the factor of time.
Well, if they feel they are a wage slave, then they should just ask for higher pay, right? Well, unfortunately, there is unequal bargaining power between the laborer and the ownership/capitalist class.
So, to give us more of an idea of wage slavery, let's briefly go over wage slavery in the past and what people thought of it back in the day. So, the concept of wage slavery dates back to the ancient world. In ancient Rome, Cicero wrote that the very wage laborers receive is a pledge of their slavery. And in 1763, French journalist Simone Linguet gave an influential description of wage slavery. The slave was precious to his master because of the money he had cost him. They were worth at least as much as they could be sold for in the market. It is impossibility of living by any other means that compels our farm laborers to till the soil whose fruits they will not eat, and our masons to construct buildings in which they will not live. It is want that compels them to go down on their knees to the rich man in order to get from him permission to enrich him. What effective gain has the suppression of slavery brought him? He is free, you say. Ah, then his misfortune, these men have the most terrible, the most imperious of masters that is need. They must therefore find someone to hire them or die of hunger. Is that to be free? So basically he's saying workers are motivated to work these low paying jobs or, within slavery because the little that they gain is better than gaining nothing.
And then we'll kind of go over different people who compared it to slavery as well. So there were proponents of it being compared to slavery and opponents. Now, either side may have had some ulterior motives, which would basically be the reasoning for why they were proponents or opponents of against it or for it. But we're just gonna read some of their different quotes from both sides. So we're gonna start with the proponents who believed in wage slavery. So, Southern slave states argued that Northern workers were free but in name the slaves of endless toil, and that their slaves were better off. Corroborated by some modern studies that indicate slaves' material conditions in the 19th century were better than what was typically available to free urban laborers at the time. Henry David Thoreau wrote, "It is hard to have a Southern overseer. It is worse to have a Northern one, but worst of all when you are the slave driver of yourself." Imagery of wage slavery was widely used by labor organizations during the mid-19th century to object to the lack of worker self-management. However, it was gradually replaced by the more neutral term wage work towards the end of the 19th century as labor organizations shifted their focus to raising wages. Karl Marx described capitalist society as infringing on individual autonomy due to being based on a materialistic and commodified concept of the body and its liberty. And Frederick Engels stated, "The slave is sold once and for all. The proletarian must sell himself daily and hourly. The individual slave, property of one master, is assured an existence, however miserable it may be, because of the master's interest. The individual proletarian, property as it were of the entire bourgeois class, which buys his labor only when someone has need of it, has no secure existence."
So now we'll look at the opponents of the term wage slavery. So abolitionists criticized the analogy. They argued that wage workers were neither wronged nor oppressed. Abraham Lincoln and Republicans argued that the condition of wage workers was different from slavery, as long as laborers were likely to develop the opportunity to work for themselves, achieving self-employment. Frederick Douglass, an abolitionist and former slave, initially declared, "Now I am my own master." Later in life, he concluded to the contrary, saying, "Experience demonstrates that there may be a slavery of wages only a little less galling and crushing in its effects than chattel slavery, and that the slavery of wages must go down with the other." He went on to speak about these conditions as arising from the unequal bargaining power between the ownership capitalist class and the non-ownership laborer class. No more crafty and effective device for defrauding the Southern laborers could be adopted than the one that substitutes orders upon shopkeepers for currency in payment of wages. It has the merit of a show of honesty, while it puts the laborer completely at the mercy of the landowner and the shopkeeper. So in 1869, the NYT described wage labor as a system of slavery as absolute, if not as degrading as that which lately prevailed at the South. E.P. Thompson stated, "Gap in status between a servant and a hired wage laborer subject to the orders and discipline of the master and an artisan who might come and go as he pleased was wide enough for men to shed blood rather than allow themselves to be pushed from one side to the other. And in the value system of the community, those who resisted degradation were in the right."
So, as we can see, wage slavery, the concept thereof, has been around for a while, but does it still exist? There's no way in the modern world any form of slavery could still exist, right?
Well, as we'll see in our next video, that may not be the case.
So, make sure to join us in our next video where we go more into depth on how it affects us in America. And you can also leave a comment below letting us know what you want us to discuss in future episodes.
You can reach out to us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And we occasionally go on Twitch live streams, so watch out for those.
And don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our content. But we will see you all in the next video.